What is going on, Notre Dame football fans? I'm Tyler Horka. That's Jack Sobel. We are with blueandgold.com, Blue and Gold Illustrated, here for another edition of the Hey Horka YouTube live show. Obviously, also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys listen to all of that. Jack, you started your day today, as we're recording this on Wednesday, July 31st, with a little social media post saying that today is like Christmas. You wouldn't know what that means.
No, I would
But
not.
I think a
But
lot
no,
of people who
I said this is what Christmas must be like.
yeah.
I assume.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of your followers know exactly what Christmas feels like. And I think you probably hit the nail on the head in saying that today is sort of like a Christmas morning for a lot of these people because you and I spent a couple of hours on Notre Dame's campus at the Irish Athletic Center, at the LeBar practice facilities, watching the Fighting Irish's first fall camp practice of 2024. And I kind of agree with you. Well, I agree and disagree. Some people who love this stuff, and don't get me wrong, I get paid to watch football, cover football, write about football. It feels more like the first day of school, and we'll get into some of that. But like, it's exciting for some reasons, and then other reasons it's kind of daunting, and we'll probably get into some of those reasons because let's face it, this Notre Dame football team has so many things to be optimistic about. And then there are some other things that leave you saying, like, Jack, when you go into the first day of school and you're like, I'm so excited to see all these people, and I know I'm going to do this, and that well, but I don't know about this thing. And when this test comes up, I don't really want to cross that path. So, I mean, well, like I said, we'll get into some of that. But did you leave practice today sort of feeling the same way? Like, hey, this was exciting. This is like a holiday. Let's go. This is the start of something special.
Yeah, no, I think the first day of school vibe is good. I I think that's a good comparison. That's honestly how I kind of felt this morning. Like you're gonna do all your work just pick back up. But it's exciting, obviously, and I think like if anyone was expecting us to leave this Notre Dame practice thinking this team's going to win the national championship and like every problem is fixed, I think those people are going to be disappointed. And I think they were always going to be disappointed because it's practice one. It's a quarterback that, and we'll get into the specifics, like has not practiced since early March. And missed a good chunk of spring practice, and you could tell that today. And I think it was always going to be an up and down day for Riley. It was always going to be an up and down day for the team. It was kind of a meh practice, but
Yeah.
you expect that in day one. I Yeah, you can expect that, and I don't think any sweeping takeaways. Anyone with sweeping takeaways from today probably doesn't really know what they're talking about, I would say. I But we certainly learned a lot of like the minutia that we'll get into.
Yeah, a couple more things on just kind of the ambiance, atmosphere, everything that went into today. I was trying in the last couple of hours because, Jack, we had a very busy day. We were writing for hours and hours on end. Go to blueandgold.com for countless content items from today. Our colleague Jack Sobel was also on hand, so he's got a couple of stories from today. Just awesome coverage. Or our colleague Kyle Kelly, you're Jack Sobel. Sorry about that. I saw. Thank you for correcting me there with your facial expression. Jack Sobel, Kyle Kelly, Tyler Horka. We were all at practice today, and we all came away with multiple things to write about at blueandgold.com. But as I was kind of coming down from that, walked my dog around the block and said to myself, what was today all about? And I think this kind of encapsulates like American culture. Jack, there's a whole Olympiad going on in Paris, France right now, and other surrounding parts of France. And I couldn't really care less. Now, look, I think the Olympics are awesome, and if I have time to watch them, I will. But like the United States women's soccer team played a game today, and a former Notre Dame player scored the game-winning goal. I didn't know about that till 3 hours after the fact. I saw it on social media as I was perusing through Notre Dame football posts. And the men's basketball team, USA men's basketball team, beat South Sudan handily. Like, they look great. That's always fun to watch. I was so keyed in on Notre Dame football today, Jack, that I didn't know about any of these things until probably 2 hours ago. And at the time of this recording, that was 6 p.m. Yeah, like, do you think that's an accurate way to say that this just kind of consumes us and everyone who's watching this probably feels the exact same way?
Yeah, yeah. No, no, I've never been a huge Olympics guy. And yeah, I think when you're a diehard, you're a diehard, and everyone can go. Today we can flip the switch from freaking out about Notre Dame recruiting to freaking out about the team on the field.
Absolutely. So let's kind of set up what we're doing with today's show because it's a little bit different than what we normally do. We usually pick 3 to 5 questions from the blueandgold.com loose emoji message board, which we've still done that, but we've got about 10 today, 8 to 10 of those. We're kind of rapid fire, spend, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes on some of those. But you guys watching this, we definitely want you to be a part of it as well if you're watching live on YouTube. And I see that a lot of people already are. Lotus says that Hey Horka needs a theme song. I would absolutely love that. Chief Brady here says, Hey Horka, Brody, I'm sorry. Hey Horka, hey Jack. I think somebody called us Big J's in here. That's Jay Carr
Yep.
calling us Big J's. That's pretty awesome. So
to Jay Carr's first comment, I would say that I hate the White Sox too now. So
hey, dude, the Rangers lost, I think it was 8-1 yesterday and 10-1 today. It's over. The season's over.
damn, man, that's crazy. We just had our second 14-game losing streak of the season.
I know. And also I have fond memories, so I have that to draw back on. Notre Dame fans are hoping to have some fond memories of this 2024 football season. And like I was getting at, we're going to talk a lot about it here tonight and kind of what we saw, mostly what we saw today. There are some bigger questions, but again, if you're in the chat, we want your questions. We see them. We will answer them. In the meantime, we're going to get to some stuff that Loose Emoji message board subscribers asked us earlier on today. That's the perk of being a blueandgold.com subscriber, Jack. You get kind of the first we see your stuff before we see everyone who's watching this and chatting. So Mizzo, who is a big time contributor at the message board, and I know you love this question, Jack, and this question has been popping up more and more recently. So at this point, as you told me today in the Notre Dame Duncan Student Center, there's nobody that we're not talking about at this point. But I think you made a really good point when we were having this conversation earlier, and you brought up a really good name, and it's a topical name for what he did on the first day of spring practice today. So what is your answer to who surprised you the most that nobody seems to be talking about?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the nobody's talking about part of this because again, like it's when you're on a site like ours, it's pretty hard to find someone that nobody's talking about. But based on what he did in spring practice, it didn't surprise me. But I love what I saw from Jaden Harrison today. I think he is just so quick. He snaps off his routes. At the break point really, really well. He's got great hands, and people always talk about the speed and the shiftiness with Harrison. Like the hands have really impressed me. Like he'll go over the middle, make hands catches in traffic. Very, very impressive stuff from Harrison. And we had another question later in the chat that was like, everyone is in agreement that Jaden Harrison looks awesome. How is someone who was like a wide receiver 3 at Marshall doing this? And my honest answer is like, I have no idea. Like we were talking in kind of in the seats at practice, like, how was Marshall not using this guy more? Like we have no idea, but all we know is that Notre Dame is really happy to have him right now.
Yeah, I thought he looked fantastic. Just everything that he's done since getting to Notre Dame. I know he had the one bump in the road with what was it, an ankle, a foot? He had a boot
I think it was
on for a little
plantar fasciitis injury. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It was similar to why JD Bertrand missed the Senior Bowl, but he's fine.
All I know about that is my dad complained about it for like a solid year when I was growing up. So I don't think it's very fun. It's awesome to see that he's come back from it quickly, probably because he's a little younger than my dad was. But that said, like I was saying, everything that he's done since getting here, Jack, has been impressive. And I go all the way down to him saying, yeah, I want to catch passes for Sam Hartman at Pro Day and looking very good doing it. I think it was him, Jaden Greathouse, Jaden Thomas. So like there were a few other guys who did it, but I came away from that thing thinking, holy cow, like he might have been the best guy that Sam Hartman was throwing passes to today. And then today I came away thinking Is he the best guy that Riley Leonard's throwing two passes right now on this given day? And that was also a possibility. So, yeah, I think we need to be talking more about him. And I think the reason he's a good answer to this question is because when you think Notre Dame slot receiver for the last 10 months, you've thought Jaden Greathouse and you've thought Jordan Faison. And you bring in this guy from Marshall who, like you said, Jack, didn't blow you away with his statistics with the Thundering Herd. And you're thinking, okay, yeah, that guy's he's just kind of here. He's going to return kicks, right? And he is going to do that.
He's a really good kick returner. Like they always knew they were getting that from him. But I don't know if they expected him to cement himself in the receivers rotation so soon. And I think that's what he's done. And like he's part of the reason we saw Jordan Faison, like you mentioned, taking reps at field receiver today. You know, if you were on the internet earlier today, you knew that. If you weren't, then you know this is probably news to you. Like Jordan Faison took all his reps at field receiver, which I personally think he's a great fit for. I think pigeonholing smaller guys into the slot is kind of how you miss like the quicker dudes like Jordan Faison who can be successful to the field. But I mean it was still notable, and part of Marcus Freeman's explanation was like, yeah, Jaden Harrison's looked really good in the slot. We know Jaden Greathouse can win the slot. And, you know, they know that Faison is probably one of their best, you know, 3 or so receivers. So they want to make sure to get him reps. And I think he's going to play all over the field, I think.
Along those lines, what I've seen from Jaden Harrison, I think he could make catches out of the field position or beat guys outside. Like he's a dang good wide receiver. And I think Notre Dame is happy to have scooped him up. And we've seen.
I will always hammer the point home, like versatility and wide receiver. Sorry for cutting off there. I will always hammer the point home, like versatility at the receiver position is really important. It makes you a lot more difficult to defend.
And I think Notre Dame has seen over the years that you just need anyone you can get at the position because you never know who's going to be available, who's going to be healthy, who's going to actually be good and contribute. And like we could be sitting here in a month, Jack, saying, where is the Jaden Harrison that we saw in spring ball and fall camp? And that's a complete possibility. But the best thing that you can do as a coaching staff is take the chance on the guy and just get him on campus and give him an opportunity. And it seems like he's going to make the most of it. And I don't know if we have any other Notre Dame wide receiver questions. So while we're on the topic, I will also say that Bo Collins made a very nice catch today in team. I thought Deion Colsey made a nice catch in one-on-ones. Like there's guys doing things. And I say this because we just got a question in the chat from Chief Brody. Will we actually see a coherent passing offense? I think it's very possible. I think you have the quarterback that you want. Yep. You have the offensive coordinator that you want, and then the pass catchers as well. Like we didn't even see Mitchell Evans play team today, and I thought, you know, there were still guys making plays as pass catchers, which was a good sign.
Yeah, I think, and we'll touch on this a little bit more because we have a quarterback question. But Jaden Thomas looked great. Jaden Thomas made a few really nice plays in the boundary. He has the trust of Riley Leonard. You know, there's a lot more diversity in terms of skill sets. There's a lot more speed, I think, than there was last year. I think there's a lot more deep passing ability. And like Mark with glasses, like it sounds a little bit depressing, but like his latest comment, like you might have a point, like could very well be possible that, and so that's the concern. That's like the floor for this group. Yes. But the ceiling is a lot of, you know, all 6 of these guys, 7 if you count Micah Gilbert, who also looked really good today. Could turn out to be really good players, and you need a dearth of those guys. The latest comment about Tyler Buckner, he mostly signal plays from the sideline. He's a walk-on wide receiver. That's it.
Yeah, I don't expect too much out of Tyler Buckner this year.
Tyler Buckner, finish the conversation. Tyler Buckner was last in line in drills. Did not play in team. Signaled plays from the sideline. We can put this conversation to bed.
Yeah, I was watching the Notre Dame defense today, Jack. Obviously, you were covering the offense for us at blueandgold.com. I kind of forgot that Tyler Buckner was even at this practice, so that kind of shows you where he's at. But again, we talked about him in other shows. I think it's awesome that he's here, giving him the chance, all of those different things. So, yeah, I was going to say one more thing on the wide receivers, and it goes to Mark with glasses comment. That's kind of been the bugaboo for Notre Dame wide receivers for the last couple of seasons. Nobody has been that dude. And Jack, I go back to that comment that Mike Denbrock told me and you in a one-on-one conversation in mid-May. He's searching for that dude.
Yep.
If he never surfaces, you're going to see a lot of what we've seen from Notre Dame in the pass catching department the last couple of years. Probably going to have to really rely on Mitchell Evans. And that's a scary thing for Riley Leonard and company. But I like that the cast of characters is different. You have new guys who can potentially break out. Like you probably couldn't go in there with Chris Tyree again, or even Rico Flores Jr. and be like, okay, we have one here. Now maybe you have Bo Collins and you have Chris Mitchell. We talked about Jaden Harrison. So I think the possibility that one of these guys is not mid, as you say, Mark with glasses, you kind of take that chance because these guys are new.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Moving this thing along, I think we have a few from Mizzo in a row. So this one we probably don't need to spend a whole lot of time on, but I do think some of the anecdotes were the most interesting from today's practice. Which coach was the most fired up? I think there's a clear top three, going back to the conversation about the Olympics. Let's do this, Jack. We talked about the Olympics earlier on. Let's go bronze, silver, gold medal. Who were the top three most fired up coaches for you today? Give me an order.
I think the gold medal is probably Denbrock. We didn't hear as much cussing from him, but like he was on the offense all practice. I mean, not even like yelling and screaming. Like he did his best to keep the energy up, and at times the energy wasn't probably where he wanted it to be, and I thought he did a great job trying to keep it up. Number two was probably Marcus Freeman, dropping a couple of those F-bombs. That we heard that pre-practice speech last year, where there's a winner and there's a blank loser, that we got on Twitter last year. So we've heard this from before, probably not as much as we did in practice today. He had some choice words for Chance Tucker after one rep against Micah Gilbert. That kind of sticks in my mind. And then Joe Rudolph, screamed at one of his second team offensive linemen to wake up. Only there was a word in front of wake up. But honestly, like they needed that. I thought I liked what I saw from Joe Rudolph today. And those would be my gold, silver, bronze.
That's my gold, silver, bronze as well. I will add one thing on Marcus Freeman. I think the difference between him today and what we saw in that one practice that you mentioned last year, Jack, where he kind of fired everyone up from the beginning. I don't want to say that was rehearsed or forced or anything like that, but it was before anything substantial or consequential in practice had happened. So it was a clear rah, hey, let's get the guys going tactic.
Yes.
Today,
absolutely.
Everything was in the flow and heat of the moment. And I have a quote on my notepad right here. These guys are in shoulder pads and shorts and helmets today to kind of set the scene for everyone. So there's no tackling or anything like that going on, but there was some tumbling to the ground and, just kind of getting tangled up and whatnot. That happens even when you're wearing shorts in a football practice. And Marcus Freeman just screams at, he's on the other side of the field and he starts running over to where the entanglement is. And he says, he uses one of those choice words. It's a 4-letter word.
Basically, why are we what are we on the ground for? It would be the clean version of what Marcus Freeman said.
That's the clean version, and I was like, okay, that is that's what he feels, and I love to see that. And then you mentioned the other moment, singling somebody out in front of everyone. That's not just for Chance Tucker, man. That is for everyone on that football field. They see that and they know, okay, I better be doing my job because he could come after me in a heartbeat. So that's coming from the top down. So I thought that was very cool. You need a little bit of that in the football practice, even the first one of fall camp. I'm sure we'll see it a little bit more as things go on. This one, Jack, I don't think we can definitively answer.
No, we definitely can't.
That's my answer to it. So for those listening on Spotify or Apple, did Riley Leonard look like a quarterback who can beat a top 10 team with his arm? That's from KCND MIS 97. I don't know. We didn't see enough.
To be honest,
very vanilla practice, was it not, Jack?
No, it was. To be honest, Riley pretty much looked like the guy he was at Duke. Honestly, he made a few good throws. He did well to trust his receivers downfield. He showed that he can hit guys in rhythm to the opposite sideline, which was always my favorite trait about him as a passer. But the accuracy was still a little bit erratic. Erratic is a bit of a harsh word, but it was a little inconsistent. The accuracy, he had a bad miss downfield to intended for Chris Mitchell. He didn't deal super well with the blitz, even though that was a little bit his interior offensive line didn't do super well with the blitz either. But he looked like he got a little bit flustered in the pocket. But again, like we have to qualify every single thing we say, especially about Leonard, especially because he didn't have much of a spring with it's day one. And if he looks like this against Texas A&M, and even if he does, that doesn't mean he'll look like that all season. Like you have to be patient with him.
You mentioned how he looked against the blitz, and I always find this fascinating. I always think that the quarterbacks who are good in-game runners, and Riley Leonard is a great one of those, they do get a little flustered in practices where defenses aren't taking them to the ground fully, because it looked to me like he was sitting in there trying to make a play when clearly, I mean, Al Golden sent some blitzes today in shorts, man, and he's going to do that in pads, and he's going to do that on Saturdays in the fall as well. But Leonard was just kind of sitting in there, and he's like, all right, I'm wearing shorts. I'm going to actually try to get this out. Like, why would I run when I can't run? Like, they're going to blow it dead as soon as I go.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. Like, we can't really judge Riley Leonard too much on a no-padded practice because, like, you're not going to run as a quarterback in a no-padded practice.
Yep. And I think there were a lot of instances today where he would have run in games, and this might have been one of those 100-yard Riley Leonard rushing performance types of games if he was feeling that well. And I think he does, like, he's got a feel for when to do that at this point in his career. He's a senior. Like, maybe he didn't know what he was doing as a freshman or early in his sophomore year, but like I trust him to do that. So he's got the arm talent too. That's the last thing I'll say on this conversation, Jack, is like,
for sure,
you mentioned making the cross hash throws. Like, he's got the strength to do that. Does he have the accuracy to do it? And it's not even really the accuracy to do that. It's more of, like you said, the miss to Chris Mitchell today. I mean, that's a touchdown in a normal game, and he just missed it. I think it was a little high and behind him, or whatever it was.
Maybe overshot it a bit.
Yeah, and he needs to hit those. So not sure if we answered the question on if he can hit those consistently today. Nobody did, but it's fair to ask it because it's really one of the things that'll kind of define Notre Dame's offensive season.
Absolutely. Like we said, I think the best way to sum up Leonard's performance today is, some good, some not so good, patience, I think.
Yeah, and I think the best thing is that even in like such a vanilla practice, it never looked as bad as Sam Hartman's spring like 2023. And I know Sam Hartman looked better in fall camp 2023, but like at least this was one of the first practices that we got to see Riley Leonard play from start to finish, because he had the ankle thing in the spring, and I didn't leave thinking, oh no, do they have the wrong guy? Or I never thought that was Hartman, but I did think, oh man, is this going to work? Like I didn't leave the practice worrying about that. So I think we're fine on that front.
Yeah, I think so too.
So let's talk about starters, and I will preface this with, we're not going to give you a full 11 because we want you to go to blueandgold.com and check out our depth charts.
This is a great plug opportunity.
That's one of the things we spent a good amount of time doing today, and really earlier in the week, we kind of set the foundation with a forecast, a prognostication, a projection, and I thought we hit a lot of those on the head, Jack, but obviously they were going to throw some wrinkles at us today, and I'll go to the defense. I don't know if there were any wrinkles, so I'm going to hand this over to you in a second here, but the defensive line was exactly as you would have thought it was. If you don't know what that looks like, again, go to blueandgold.com. We've had that laid out for you since the beginning of this calendar year. Linebackers, you know who those are after Maris Leofau and J.D. Bertrand left. You have Jack Kaiser, Drake Bowen, Kingston Viliamu-Asa. So the one thing I'll say about those three guys, in addition to Jaden Osbury and Jalen Sneed, holy cow, did we see a lot of combinations. And that's why I asked Marcus Freeman about that in the post-practice press conference. It looks like they are comfortable playing pretty much anyone, anywhere. I would say that Viliamu-Asa's, he's set as a middle linebacker, but they're comfortable playing him with Snead, Kaiser, Bowen. Like, it doesn't matter who the will is next to him; they'll play anybody. But like going off of that, Bowen played both the will and the Mike. Kaiser played both the will and the Mike today in base 4-3 looks. You got a combination of 3 of those 5 guys out there. I thought it was very impressive. And then on the back end, you have Benjamin Morrison, you have Xavier Watts, Rod Hurd, and Adon Schuler are battling for a safety spot. And Jordan Clark is your nickel corner. Like, he's the guy at that position. That was a big takeaway from today. And then obviously, if Morrison is healthy and he plays against Texas A&M, you will see one of Jaden Mickey or Christian Gray start at the other cornerback position. That's the cool thing about watching the defense today, Jack, was you kind of knew what to expect, and they put it out there exactly as you would. You had some wrinkles, though. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I had some wrinkles. Here's my notes, depth chart. That's the conversation. But yeah, so Emil Wagner, I think no sense in burying the lead. Emil Wagner took every first team rep at right tackle and looked pretty dang good doing it. I'm not gonna lie. He got beat once that I can remember. It was RJ Oben on like an inside move, maybe a little out and in swim. But that'll happen. Oben's in his 6th year. He's quite good. But other than that, like he stonewalled some pretty good edge rushers. Wagner, we both agreed he looks bigger than we've ever seen him at Notre Dame. He looks sturdier. Like I'm comfortable looking at him and seeing, someone can bull rush him and he'll hold up, I think. And I did not feel that about him in the past. And there's no doubts about his athleticism, his agility, which are just so important for offensive line play, especially against some good speed rushers like Notre Dame is going to face this season. So Wagner is very good. And I think, barring something unforeseen, he's probably going to be your starting right tackle. That competition is going to be over pretty quickly if it is not already.
We should pat ourselves on the back for that if it happens, Jack, because I think
correct.
With our blue and gold top 25
all year. Yep.
Yeah, we've been on that one. So we were not surprised. Well, I'll put it this way. I was not surprised to see Wagner taking all those first team reps, but I was a little like, it takes you aback at least a little bit because you're actually seeing what you thought could happen, and you're seeing it on day 1 of fall camp. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and you're seeing it the entire practice. It wasn't like they're splitting reps and Wagner's out first.
Yeah.
To be honest, I kind of thought like last year we saw Kristofik and Trouth go out at guard first, even though they were kind of leaning towards the other ones. I thought Baker was going to go out there first.
That was kind of for like a week too. We got
we thought it was wrapped up the other way, but no, obviously not. Competition that's definitely not wrapped up is Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler at left guard. They split first team reps pretty evenly, I would say. So that's obviously one to watch out for. Jeremiah Love starting at running back. The way I put it on the depth chart is like, I don't want to put an or between Love and Price because like I know they're 1A and 1B, but I think it's pretty clear who's 1A and who's 1B, if that makes sense. I think like
totally.
I think they obviously like Price a lot, as we've discussed in the show, but the way Marcus Freeman talks about Jeremiah Love, like the quote, I'm paraphrasing here, but the quote that was really, really good for Marcus to end the presser was like, it's not rocket science. In our offense, you get Jeremiah Love the ball.
That was a good one to end on, yeah.
Yeah, it was a great one to end on. He's going to be a focal point there. So he's the starter. Price will get a ton of run, obviously, but by all technicalities, the backup. Jaden Thomas starting over Bo Collins at the boundary receiver. Not unexpected. Oftentimes you'll want like the transfer to earn their spot, but Thomas looked good. So Thomas has a real shot of holding off Collins there. Great house in the slot. Chris Mitchell in the field. No surprises there. Jordan Faison in the field. We talked about that. Some depth chart notes, offensive line. Sullivan Absher moved to guard. Anthony Knapp, the freshman, the second team left tackle. I thought that was interesting. But this conversation starters, those aren't starters. And obviously, if it wasn't clear, Riley Leonard, first team quarterback, the vast majority, maybe all the reps at quarterback with the first team. No competition there, even though Marcus Freeman won't outright say it. He's a starter.
Yeah, you mentioned Absher and kind of really the larger point being some of these two deepers, the guys on the two deep who maybe have like come into their own there. And on the
Yep.
defensive end, it's a good segue. Like last year, we saw Junior Tui Halamaka and Josh Burnham basically be 2A, 2B to Jordan Botelho at Viper for the whole season. And they got away from that when they moved Burnham to strong side defensive end, where he was a solid 2 today. And I was not surprised by that in the slightest. He is RJ Oben's backup. So now you have an opening to be Botelho's backup, or I don't know, compete with Botelho for like number 1 reps. And that was Boubacar Traore today. So the question from Ace Cake 501 is, how did the defensive ends look? RJ Oben was like, he looks the part, and I wrote
Yep.
that in our observations. He looks like he's going to be exactly what Notre Dame wants him to be, which is a Javonte Jean-Baptiste clone. Like JJB was so good for Notre Dame last year, and Notre Dame went to Duke and plucked Oben thinking, man, if we can just get him to be like that guy that we just had. And it's starting to trend that way. Of course, hasn't even played it down for Notre Dame yet, but I'm more and more confident in Oben as the days go on. And today was another reassurance of that. But another guy that I have been touting, I put him on
Yep.
my BGI top 25. And I think maybe Steve Downey did as well. There were only 2 of us. I know you flirted with putting him on there.
Yeah, he
Boubacar
was.
Traore.
Yeah.
And Boubacar Traore, and you've said it all along, Jack, if he can just get the run defense part of this mastered, he's one of your best pass rushing defensive ends on the team. Showed it again today with an excellent rep against Charles Jagasaw. It was just a one-on-one type of drill, really like a simulation where you had a couple of guys on the offensive line, but you knew exactly who was going to match up with who. And Traore won that rep pretty handily, just got right by Jagasaw. He does that every single practice that we get to watch, Jack, especially the ones that we see in their entirety. So those are the 2 guys that caught my attention from a defensive end perspective today. It was RJ Oben, Boubacar Traore. I know you were watching the offense, Jack, but I mean, you had to have seen at least a little something from Oben, Traore, Botelho, Burnham. What'd you see from those guys?
Yeah, I saw what you said. I saw what you saw with Open and Traore. Didn't see a ton from Botelho, but I mean, he had a good spring. I don't think Botelho's job is in jeopardy, but I do think Traore is certainly a candidate to replace him on passing downs. And I mean,
Yeah,
like you said,
and that's something like we didn't see. I mentioned
yeah,
the Tui Alamaka Burnham split. They didn't earn that last year. I think
correct.
Traore is on the verge of earning that recognition or the ability to go out there on third down, like you said.
Oh, I think Traore is a star. I think Traore is a legitimate star at some point in the not too distant future. He's got every move you can have. He's strong enough to work the long arm. He's fast enough to work speed moves. He's a stud. I did think the defensive tackles were better than the ends overall today. I don't know if you got a similar impression, but I thought
Yeah.
more pressure came from the inside than the outside.
I wrote a lot about the tackles today. I think that 2 deep that you have, and this is we're going to get to a question about Gabriel Rubio. But this is before even talking about Rubio, because I think he's still trying to work into that 2 deep. Howard Cross, Riley Mills, Jason Onye, Donovan Heinisch.
Well, actually, Heinisch might be a good answer for the first question that we had, because like no one talks about him.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I just thought of that. Like with Rubio and Anya there, it's been all about them, and obviously Cross and Mills, no one's replacing them. But like with Rubio out and kind of we'll get to him later. He didn't do much in team today, but Heinisch looks good. Heinisch is super quick. He's not the biggest dude. No Riders DG Tyler Buckner will not see the field.
You are on Tyler Buckner watch, man. Anytime his name comes up, you see it and you're on it. I commend you.
Well, I just want to, I just want to put the word out here that like I know everyone's instinct is like Tyler Buckner is a great athlete. Tyler Buckner is there because he wanted to help out the team. The team took him on. He's a walk-on wide receiver. He'll signal in plays. That's it.
When he scores a touchdown against Georgia Tech, I'm going to pull up this video and you're going to have to eat your words. I'm just saying. Slim
No,
chance,
true.
but I'm just saying.
Very true. I Yeah, the stadium's gonna go crazy when he scores a touchdown against Northern Illinois. Tyler Buckner scores the last touchdown against Northern Illinois.
Okay. Yeah, the fans love his story, man.
Yeah.
So like he's definitely a fan favorite. That you cannot
I'm
argue.
I'm I'm also reading. Heard he was the holder for kicks at practice. I'm pretty sure that was Chris Salerno because they both wear 26. I could be wrong though.
Ooh, it did not look like Tyler Buckner is an athletic. Well, this is no slight to Chris Salerno
Yeah,
either. I love the Salerno family. Matt had an awesome, was it 6 years here as a
I
wide
believe that's
receiver?
correct.
Eventually earned that scholarship, and when I say earned it, he absolutely did. Um, I interviewed Chris Salerno for a walk-on segment that we used to do, Jack, in 2021. You were still, what were you? Were you a junior at Missouri by that point, or were you still a
Are we
sophomore?
saying the 2021 football season?
Yeah,
Yeah, junior.
junior. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I interviewed him, and it was an awesome segment, awesome family. I'm pretty sure that was Chris Salerno, just based on what I know what Tyler Buckner looks like. I know what Chris Salerno looks like, and I think that was Salerno. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was pretty sure, and also like Salerno held during spring camp. I don't see any
Yeah.
reason why he wouldn't do that now. Yeah.
That'd be crazy though if somehow Tyler Buckner got into every game as the holder. My mind just wandered there. But anyway, let's get off the Tyler Buckner thing.
Yes. Anyway, Donnie
Um,
Heinisch. Donnie Heinisch was
Ronnie
good.
Hinish,
Yep.
yes, he was very good. And I think that the two deep for Notre Dame in the interior is excellent. So yeah, we can get off the defensive ends now. And well, actually, I want before we get to this question about A&M, Jack, we talked about the Notre Dame offensive line a little bit. I kind of want to go through some of these live comments here. Texas ND, any Lambert sightings? We're talking about Gerby Lambert, the freshman offensive tackle.
It's a good question. I mean, he was there. He's a mountain of a man,
He's a
but
big guy.
he was the third team right tackle I have in my notes and very much looked like a freshman in his first practice. So, I mean, obviously not a shock. Patience with him as with anybody. And again, I'm no high school scout, but from what I read, it seemed like he's got the body type to start to help right away. But he was not asked to do a ton of pass protection in high school, from what I have heard. So he very much looked like that in this practice. If Emil Wagner is good, they won't need him right now. And yeah, third team right tackle, Patience. Second
Yeah, as
team
much
left
as
tackle, Mr. 2.0 is Anthony Knapp, freshman who is here in the spring.
as much as you don't want blue chip prospects to be projects, sometimes they are. And I think Gerby Lambert is that, especially since he enrolled in the summer and was not here in the spring. I think that would have totally
I don't
changed
know if we
things.
want to say I don't know if we want to say project just because like we are we talked about him all offseason as a guy who could maybe potentially start midseason. But
I think that says
I
more
think
about Notre Dame's tackles, though, to be completely honest with you.
it's a very good point. It's a very good
But
point.
yeah,
Yeah.
One of these guys, two of these guys, maybe even three of these guys are going to end up being really good offensive tackles. That's the one thing that I need to say to Notre Dame fans is like, I saw somebody on our message board say, "Oh my gosh, I'm worried about Jagasaw because I described in detail the rep that Traore just kind of went right by him on." He's going to be fine. He's one of Notre Dame's two best tackles. He's going to be really good. Emil Wagner is going to be good. Gerby Lambert is probably going to be good. Like, it's not like Notre Dame doesn't have any good tackles. It does. It just needs to season these guys a little bit.
Yeah.
All three of those guys have not played a lot of football at this level, and once they do, they'll be okay.
Well, it's in a weird transition year at the position because, like, obviously, when you recruit guys, you expect them to be good. You don't necessarily expect the two guys at the position to leave after 3 years. I think that's something that's been kind of lost because obviously we all assumed Joe Alton, Blake Fisher would leave because duh. But when you're kind of building your team out, when you're kind of building these classes, you don't expect everyone to leave after 3 years. So they're in a weird transition year where they got Jagasaw, who hasn't played much, Lambert, who hasn't played at all, Wagner hasn't played much. So the future is looking good at the position. It's the present that's the question.
Absolutely. All right, we're rolling right along here. Got a few more from the message board. This one is interesting to me, and I'm going to give you the floor first. When the depth chart for the A&M game comes out, you will be pleasantly surprised if fill in the blank, and that is from Aerofan624. All yours.
It's a good question. I would say, and this is no slight on Josh Burnham. I think Josh Burnham is a good player. I would be pleasantly surprised if Bryce Young is the second team defensive end, because I mean, just look at the guy. He's a monster.
Yeah, he's so
And
tall.
yeah,
He was towering over people
he's
today.
so tall. He's filled out more than you would have expected him to do by this stage in his career. I want to say he's listed at like 260 something, right?
I think even more than that, maybe. I got the roster right here.
Well, it's weird because he's 6'7", but like with Oben and JJB, they like the guys at that position to be like to be 6'4". You have the roster?
Yeah, he's only 258 on the roster.
Okay, so Notre Dame has liked its defensive ends to be about 264. I think that's about what Oben and JJB have been, but you know, he's obviously going to be heavier when he really fills out because he's 6'7". But I think if he's number 2, it'll be like, oh, he's really going to be like a superstar. Like I think Josh Burnham is or is going to be a good player. I think Bryce Young, and I think I'm not alone in this, could be like the elite game-wrecking defensive end that Notre Dame has, like game-wrecking long-term defensive end that Notre Dame has wanted for a long time.
For sure. I think so too. And he was a guy that I got questions about in the Hey Horka thread. That is the impetus for this here video that you guys are watching. People want to know about his progress. People want to know if he's going to play as a true freshman. I think the answer to that latter question is yes. Just because, let's face it, Josh Burnham is not this guy that is pushing RJ Oben for big-time reps, right? And not to say that Bryce Young is going to be that immediately, but you got to give him a shot, maybe. And that's why the answer to this question for me is I would be pleasantly surprised, and I kind of teased this earlier, if Boubacar Traore was number 2 on the depth chart on the other side of the defensive line at Viper defensive end.
Well, are we saying surprised if he's number 2 or surprised if he's number 1? Because he was number 2 today.
Yeah, he was number 2 today, but Notre Dame has not issued us I don't want to get trapped in thinking that today was like fool's gold, because you know how Notre Dame has not issued us a depth chart that says, hey, Boubacar Traore is number 2 over Junior Tui Halamaka, who's been here for a whole year longer or whatever it's been. I would not be shocked if a week before, 5 days before Notre Dame plays Texas A&M, you still see Junior Tui Halamaka above Boubacar Traore. I would be like, okay, thank you, if Traore was actually listed at number 2.
Fair.
And here's one that would actually surprise me, and I don't know if it would be a pleasant surprise as much as just kind of vindication and validation of what I've been saying all along. I think Don Schuler has a chance to actually play just as much as Rod Hurd at safety. I'm not going to be a prisoner of the moment today. And this was Rod Hurd's first practice with Notre Dame. Like he was not able to practice with Notre Dame because he was still a student at Northwestern for the entire spring. Don Schuler started every single practice for Notre Dame at the safety spot opposite of Xavier Watts. So he's got the most experience there. That's probably the biggest reason why you saw them split reps today. But I think by the end of this thing, and I asked Marcus Freeman this in the press conference today as well, like does Schuler actually have a chance to play step for step, stride for stride with Rod Hurd? And he sounded, for a Marcus Freeman who I saw a comment earlier, and I think a lot of other people agreed with this, just kind of wasn't his like normal chipper, he's going to answer every question with the huge paragraph. Marcus Freeman, when I asked him that question, I actually kind of felt some emotion in his response, and it sounded like he strongly thinks that Don Schuler can play that position for Notre Dame in like big time spots.
Yeah, I think the phrase that stuck out for me is he's like, both those guys are going to play. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about the spear the spear package, the 3-2-6, the dime secondary, like Schuler is going to be part of that. Rod Hurd's going to be part of that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think the beauty of Rod Hurd is that you can put him all over in that kind of package. He can be a real asset there. But yeah, both of them are going to play regardless of who starts. And I think he did leave the door open to Don Schuler really winning that job. And I think it just goes to show like the safety position is in a really good spot going forward.
And so much of that is because they have Rod Hurd. This is not me saying Schuler is better than Rod Hurd. I think Rod Hurd's a very good football player. The most experienced football player on Notre Dame's defense, which is a crazy reality. But Pete Sampson tweeted the other night that he's played more snaps than anyone else on this Notre Dame defense. Wow. And you're like, holy cow, Jack Kaiser's been here for 6 years.
Howard Cross. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's interesting.
And I've reported this a few times in some of my stories on Rod Hurd. You put him on last year's defense, one that had Maris Leofau and J.D. Bertrand, two guys that just went in the NFL draft. He would have had more defensive snaps than anyone. He would have been number one on Notre Dame's defense last year. So played a lot of football. Now, a lot of that was slot corner, and that goes to my next point about Rod Hurd. I think he's the most versatile defensive back that Notre Dame has on this roster. Like, if Jordan Clark, who I think we both agree is another very good pickup for Notre Dame, and a guy that's going to play a lot at that one position, nickel corner, if anything happened to him for whatever reason, my first gut instinct is call on Rod Hurd to play that position and play it every down of every game if he can. And then you still have Schuler on the back end. Like, you're going to be okay. And that's all because of Rod Hurd's versatility.
Oh, 100%. Like my first instinct when I see them acquire a guy to play safety who, played his best work at slot corner. And I think safety is an easier position to play than slot corner. I think that's pretty clear just based on how much the nickel is asked to do on defense. But I think a guy like him, it just gives you so many options of what to do in the secondary. They have so many options up front. I would love to be Al Golden right now. You have so much that you can pull out in a given week. It can be situational. Yeah. It can be opponent based. Like there's a lot that you can do, and I think Hurd's a key part of that.
We might be too much of sunshine pumpers right now, optimists, whatever. But like, I firmly believe at every single level of Al Golden's defense, he's got something special. We talked about the interior of the defensive line, Jack. We talked about how these defensive ends are starting to look the part. You've got experienced ones, and then you've got ones that are up and coming. I mentioned the linebackers at the very beginning of this podcast saying, holy cow, the combinations you can do with those guys. And then we just spent, a good chunk of time right now talking about the secondary. And we haven't even really talked about Benjamin Morrison much, which, by the way, I don't think there's any questions where he would come up. But I think that was another huge part of the first day of camp today, Jack, was seeing how much he did. And I think we both agree that he didn't have one of his best practices. Like, I wrote this at blueandgold.com. We've seen practices where Morrison makes a one-handed interception and toe taps the sideline. Maybe he was out of bounds, but it doesn't matter. Like, there's plays, and this was in the spring, where he reminds you, like, he's going to be the first Notre Dame from this team drafted for a reason. Mm-hmm. And just to see him out there and do as much as he did today, holy cow, Notre Dame needs him to play at Texas A&M and then every game thereafter. And seeing that he's well on his way to doing that, I think a lot of Notre Dame fans are sleeping well tonight because of that.
Yeah, I think this defense is an amazing combination of star power and depth. If we want to stop being sunshine pumpers, we can say that we've still seen zero evidence the offense can play well against good defenses, but that's a conversation for another time. But I think, there's a lot of reasons to pump some sunshine in this defense because it is so good and it is so deep and it has so many options to pull out against various opponents that I think it's a title-worthy defense, in my opinion.
Yeah, they had a title-worthy defense last year, and I think they're going to have another one. So be fun to watch. For sure. Moving on, I think we only have a couple more questions, so this might be our penultimate one.
This has been good by us.
Yeah, for sure. Some of our pacing has not been well. We've gone 2 minutes on one and 20 minutes on another. Tonight's been a free-flowing conversation, and I think that speaks to just how much having actual football to talk about helps. So, penultimate question from the message board. It's from our friend JRP3. Shout out, you know who you are. And this is less about camp today, but I thought it was a pretty good one because in about a month, it's going to be very relevant. how can Notre Dame avoid a letdown after the Texas A&M game? So, Jack, you have an entire month of practices, and I know they're not game planning for Texas A&M yet, but I bet you that comes sooner than if Notre Dame was playing Northern Illinois in week 1 or Miami of Ohio. No, they're playing Texas A&M in College Station week 1, so they're gonna turn their attention to that pretty quickly in camp, I would say. Again, sooner than normal. So you got all this time where that's the team that you're thinking about, and then win or lose, it was the same with Ohio State 2 years ago. Win or lose, you got to turn around, come home, play a MAC team this time. Are you worried about that at all? How do you avoid the letdown? My answer quickly was more of what we saw from Marcus Freeman today, routinely and consistently. Like, you can't coddle and baby these guys. They're Notre Dame Fighting Irish football players, man. If you got to get in their face like Freeman did today to Chance Tucker, do it. Remind them that, and he says it all the time, but maybe he's got to say it in a little more stern fashion. You only get 12 of these chances a year, Jack.
Yep.
Northern Illinois is one of them. I don't care what happened against Texas A&M. He's thinking we better have beat them. But no matter what happened, come home, play your best football game, because after that, you only got 10 more. And that might not be enough to get you into the college football playoff if you didn't take care of business in 1 and 2. So that's how you avoid a letdown against Northern Illinois. What say you?
Yeah, I think so when I think of a letdown after a big game, like I think of Ohio State last year, and they can be forgiven because that was such a grievous, horrible way to lose. But the principle still stands as like they didn't play their best football for another 2 weeks after that. And I think
everyone remembers that Cal game, Jack. That was almost as bad as the Marshall game for a little while. It was almost grade A disaster.
Yes.
I'm not saying I knew that they were going to beat Cal, I think. But there's some people out there who probably say, I don't know, man, if this happened and that happened, we're 0-3, and that would have been a disaster, Jack.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. But I think a lot of that was like treating the Ohio State game like the season. And like I wrote after that game, like I think in hindsight, if they finish 11-1 last year, they probably don't make the playoff just because of how strong college football was at the top. But at the time, we're thinking like win out and you're still in. And I don't know if that was the team's mindset, because I think they were just so shell shocked by Ohio State that they really did not play good football the next 2 games.
2 years in a row, man. 2 years in a row that happened. And I guess I thought you were talking about the 2022 Ohio State game when I.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But you make a good point. Marshall and Cal, you go 1-1 in those games.
Yeah.
Was to the 2022 season what Duke and
Louisville
were to
and
2023,
and you were lucky to go 1-1. And so I think the big thing with back to the original point with A&M is you can't treat that like the season. It's a huge game. No one is denying that. You have to understand that you have a very winnable schedule, and you can still have a special season, and you just need to reset, wash that game away, maybe take it to the players verbally a couple times if necessary, but like you gotta keep the guys focused on the next task ahead. You can't dwell on whatever horrible things may have happened against Texas A&M or whatever great things if they win that. You have to focus on one game at a time. And I think the past couple of years, they let what happened the previous week seep into the next week for one reason or another, and that just can't happen this year.
I think the best thing that Notre Dame has going for it on this front this year is that Marcus Freeman has taken enough lumps now to know to not dwell on what happened the previous week. Like when you're a first and second year head coach, you haven't lost enough to not think about that loss when you're trying to prepare for another game. So you think about Ohio State version 1, 2022, he was darn well still thinking about that in preparing for Marshall, and it cost them. Even last year, he was probably thinking about 10 men on the field and 3rd and 19 way too much into the week in preparation for Duke, and it almost cost them. And I think even, Jack, this is like they could win the game at Texas A&M, but that could still get in their minds about what happens against Northern Illinois. And I think that's the point that you made about beating Duke and being like, holy cow, we escaped that one. Yeah, well, you got to go on the road and play Louisville the very next week, and that's a capable football team, and they were not ready to play that football game. So
Correct.
The answer to the question is be ready to play the football game. I don't care what their helmets say. You got to be ready to play them.
Absolutely. I think it's a great way of putting it.
All right, let's finish off with this one from Rich Starkey. We kind of foreshadowed a little bit earlier in the show. Was there a Gabriel Rubio sighting today? And 2 months ago, this was a question that we wouldn't know the answer to. Well, I guess a little over 2 months ago, because Marcus Freeman did tell us on May 31st that we would see Gabriel Rubio back with Notre Dame football team in fall camp.
Well, I believe we always assumed. I think it was always thought that he would come back for summer and fall, but you're right. It's been about 2 months since we had that confirmed, I would say.
So I think from there, everyone was wondering, Starkey's next question, how was he going to look? And of course, now that's in the rearview mirror, how did he look? Jack, to me, he looked like somebody who missed spring ball. And obviously, we didn't see him much in team today. Let's just put that out there. The way that it was set up, we were in a bleacher overlooking a field, obviously, right in front of us. So picture like a middle school field with the little middle school bleacher. There we were. On the other side of the field, you had some scout team stuff going on. So like 3s and 4s, and that's where CJ Carr, Kenny Minchie, they were all down there. We saw the 1s and 2s playing right in front of our face on that field the entire time. And we never saw Gabriel Rubio get in one of those 11-on-11 sessions. And Jack Armel Mukum played one tech tackle in a spot that Gabriel Rubio normally would have. Honestly, Rubio would normally be playing ahead of Donovan Heinisch, who we hyped up earlier in the show. But I think, he's had some injuries. He's lost some time. He stepped away from the program on his own accord for a little bit. This is just kind of where he's at right now, Jack. He's fighting to get playing time in a very deep interior Notre Dame defensive tackle group. I don't know if you see it the same way, but I think that's what it is.
So I think you can take this one of two ways. The first way is that – sorry, lost my train of thought. The first way is that he's going to have to earn his spot back.
Yeah, that's how I'm seeing it, man.
The second way is that, it's been a while and they're just easing him into it, but he was here for some workouts. So I kind of take this as like, all right, Gabe, you're back. You got to earn your spot back. And, obviously you can. He's a good player. But I think we've heard so much about the strides Jason and seen the strides Jason Ondian's made this offseason. Donnie Heinisch looks good whenever we see him. You got Armel Mukum, who just looks so much better, number 88 than 93. And that alone kind of bumps him a spot on the depth chart. But yeah,
at some point you think maybe Brennan Vernon's going to figure it out. Like Sean Sevillano is the guy.
Sean Sevillano looks like he's going to be a good player. So yeah, I think if you're Gabriel Rubio, you gotta earn your way back onto the field. I think and again, we could be interpreting this, and it could be just easing back into shape. But until we see that, I think my assumption is they want to see him prove his way back onto the field.
Yeah, I believe in my notes, and sometimes my 9s look a little bit like 4s, Jack, but this looks like a 9 to me. And maybe you remember the rep because you were obviously watching the offensive line pretty closely today. But it was when they were doing those one-on-ones.
Oh, I know exactly the rep you're talking about right now. Is Rocco Spindler.
Put him in the ground, right? Put
Gabriel Rubio on the ground.
Yeah. So
it's a great rep by Spindler.
It was. It looked like Rubio was going to get him, and then Spindler's patience. He was like, I have you, and he did have him. So this is how I would put the Gabriel Rubio thing, Jack. At his best, he was a very solid reserve. Give him 100, 200, 300, maybe even snaps per season, and eventually, when Howard Cross is gone and Riley Mills moves on, you have a starting tackle there potentially. Now I think Donovan Heinisch is that guy, and Jason Anye is that guy. If they're still here at this time next year, they might be your starters. Does that leave Gabriel Rubio back where he was 2 years ago as a number 2 reserve? Like he's the missing time thing, I think, has kind of hindered his progress. But again, you said it, he's a good enough player to where maybe it won't matter and maybe he takes his spot back, and we could be talking about a starting tackle at this time next year. So that is the answer to the Gabriel Rubio thing, and I think it was important to touch on that because I think a lot of people were wondering, like, where does this guy fit in? That's how we see it right now. We will obviously cover that throughout the rest of fall camp. But Jack, we literally just hit the hour mark about a minute ago. I think we touched on a lot of really good topics today, and we're going to continue to do that. Vacations are pretty much over. I'm going on a bachelor party trip this weekend, but by this time next week, Wednesday night, I will be back in South Bend. We will have watched a few more Notre Dame practices, at least partially, since then. So we will have more to talk about with you guys, and I can't wait to do it because, Jack, this was awesome, and this is kind of our Wednesday night for like the next, 3-4 months. It's going to be fun.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
All right. We appreciate you guys for watching this stream. Again, we will be back same time next week. Definitely come back to this YouTube channel, though, in the meantime, in the week that is between now and then, because we will have so many more videos. Mike Singer, Kyle Kelly, Jack will be on some of them. I will as well. So,
nothing going on in the world of Notre Dame recruiting, right?
No. Well, that's what I said at the beginning of this, Jack. But the whole Olympics are going on, and all we can think about and talk about is Notre Dame football. Again, I wouldn't have it any other way. So we appreciate you guys being. Yeah, we appreciate you guys being with us, and we will see you guys next week.